The stars hadn't changed. Not really. They still blinked from their cold, quiet thrones in the night, like silent gods watching a universe that forgot their names. For Captain Lurok of the Zandari Dominion, patrolling Sector 12A was just another boring assignment, a piece of space littered with abandoned tech and ancient wrecks. But this time there was something strange, something not on any map. A moon-sized construct orbiting a dead star, silent, lifeless, but giving off faint pulses of energy, barely noticeable, unless you were looking for it. And Lurok was looking. They called it Object 7HUM4N, a classification used for unidentified megastructures. Most were just ruins left behind by extinct species, echoes of civilizations too proud to see their own end coming. But this one felt different, too intact. The scans showed a thick outer shell made of a metal no current species could replicate, not even the Varnok, who were supposed to be the galaxy's top engineers. Lurok's ship, the Zenthari Blade, hovered nearby as drones flew in. They barely made a dent before the structure began to respond. Not aggressively, not even defensively. It just woke up. Soft at first, like a heartbeat stirring in deep sleep. Then lights ignited across its surface in impossible patterns, forming what looked like words. No species could translate them. None except the archivists of Ilir. And they were terrified. The message was simple, but chilling. This is Earth. Do not disturb the human empire. That was the first time in 5,000 years that anyone heard the word human. Most thought they were a myth. A warning passed down by older races like bedtime tales for naughty children. But the stories were always the same. Humans were violent, brilliant, unpredictable. They burned through the stars like wildfire. They won wars they shouldn't have even survived. They disappeared after the Apex conflict, vanished completely after a mysterious final battle that wiped out 10 other species with them. And now, something inside their tomb was waking up. Lurok should have left. Every instinct told him to flee, report it, and let the High Dominion decide. But he couldn't. Curiosity got the better of him. The Empire had grown arrogant, lazy even. They needed threats like these to remind them they weren't gods. And maybe, deep down, Lurok just wanted to see if the stories were true. He authorized a boarding mission. The first thing the soldiers noticed inside was the silence, the kind that pressed against your skin. Then the cold. Not just the temperature, but a lifelessness that felt ancient and angry. The walls pulsed with low light as they stepped deeper into the structure. Every now and then, a panel would light up, showing strange creatures, humans, smiling, laughing, crying, like memories trapped in glass. Then they found the chamber. At the center of the construct, suspended in stasis, was a single human, a male, massive by alien standards, muscles dense, skin pale, covered in old scars. He looked asleep, peaceful almost, but monitors around him showed his vitals climbing. Heart rate, brain activity, neural spikes unlike anything ever recorded. Then he opened his eyes. They weren't just eyes, they were weapons. The soldiers froze. For the first time in their lives, they felt primitive, like prey. The human looked around slowly, confused but alert. Then he spoke in perfect galactic common, as if he'd never missed a day. "Who woke me?" he asked. No one could answer. The room began to tremble. Lights across the structure turned blood red. Outside, Lurok's ship registered a massive energy surge building beneath the surface. The human took a slow breath. He looked toward the dome's high ceiling, where a symbol glowed bright. A symbol once feared across galaxies. A flaming Earth surrounded by stars and claws. He smiled, cold and knowing. Time to finish what we started. The tremors didn't stop. They started low, like the hum of an ancient beast stretching its limbs after an endless slumber. But soon they became violent. Whole sections of the structure lit up as if they'd just remembered who they were. Systems came online: navigation, weapons, atmosphere control, each one waking up like an organ finding its heartbeat. Captain Lurok watched the data scroll across his monitor in disbelief. "Sir," his comms officer whispered, voice trembling, "that thing is a warship." Not just any warship. This was a human dreadnought, a relic of the Apex War, the kind of machine built not just to win, but to erase. It wasn't a myth, it was real, and it was powering up. Inside, the human was now standing. The stasis fluid had drained from the chamber, and the glass casing cracked open like the lid of a coffin. He stepped forward, naked but proud, unfazed by the armored soldiers pointing energy rifles at his head. His name, as revealed by the display behind him, was General Adam Vex, commander of the last human armada. "You've made a mistake," he said flatly. "Waking me wasn't your right." One of the soldiers tried to speak, to explain they were researchers, explorers, not enemies. But Vex didn't care. He turned away, walking past them, his fingers dragging across walls that now rippled with life. The ship responded to his touch like it had been waiting. It recognized him. It obeyed him. In the command bridge, Lurok could barely keep up. The ship, Earth's Wrath, the registry now confirmed, was rewriting its architecture. Shield systems rose from deep vaults. Weapons bays unfurled like wings. Fusion cores spun to life with impossible output, dwarfing the energy signature of the Zenthari blade by tenfold. Even the Dominion's flagships didn't come close. "Evacuate," Lurok ordered, cold sweat dripping down his neck. "Get the team out, now." But it was too late. The human had reached the control deck inside. He stood before a circular console of black, obsidian-like material. Lights wrapped around his forearms, scanning his DNA, his neural signature, his memories. It accepted him without question. In a whisper, he gave the ship a single command: "Show me what's left of the galaxy." A massive projection filled the room. The galaxy map. New borders, new empires, none of them human. The stars they once called home were now renamed, occupied, reshaped. The colonies, the outposts, the birthplaces of heroes, gone or forgotten. No statues, no mention in the histories. It wasn't just defeat, it was erasure. Vex's jaw clenched. "They buried us," he muttered, "like we never existed." He turned back to the soldiers. "Who rules now?" No one answered, but the ship did. It accessed galactic channels, pulling in news feeds, government logs, war reports, the Zandari Dominion, the Varnock Alliance, the Ziari Syndicate, all powerful, all arrogant, all treating the stars like toys passed between kings, and all of them had written off humanity as extinct. Adam Vex laughed once, a dry, bitter sound. Then it's time they remembered. The ship's engines fired. Outside, the Zenthari blade began to pull back, but not fast enough. A pulse wave knocked its systems offline. Gravity distorted. The dreadnought wasn't just moving, it was preparing for war. The old kind, the human kind. Total, unrelenting, and personal. Lurok's last visual before losing the feed was of the human's face, staring directly at the camera. His eyes burned not with rage, but something worse. Purpose. The human race had slept for 5,000 years, and now they were waking up angry. The darkness between stars held its breath. From the edge of the ruined star system, the Earth's wrath emerged like a ghost ship reborn. Its hull no longer dulled by time, but glowing with the same harsh brilliance that had once turned galaxies into war zones. Systems across half a dozen sectors detected its reactivation. Pirate clans, Dominion outposts, fringe listening stations, all flooded with one name repeated across old human frequencies. Adam Vex is awake. It wasn't a message. It was a warning. On board, Vex moved like a man stepping back into his own legend. Every corridor he passed adjusted to his presence. The artificial intelligence, once dormant, now whispered familiar voices to him. Names of dead officers, ship logs from battles long gone, recordings of Earth's final stand. They flooded back with painful clarity. His mind was sharp, trained for strategy and violence, but the ache in his chest was undeniable. Everyone he knew was gone. Everyone. His world was erased while he slept. The last war had cost them everything, and now the enemy didn't even remember his people's name. Until now. In the command center, holograms danced before his eyes. Alien empires fattened by peace, arrogant with age. They thought the apex predator was extinct. They built their world in the carcass of his. Vex studied the Dominion first. The Zandari had the largest navy, the strongest grip on politics, and, as it turned out, the biggest mouth when it came to denying humanity's role in galactic history. "Captain Lurok," Vex said calmly as he brought up the Dominion officer's last transmission, "curiosity made you brave, but it will make your people stupid." He narrowed in on their capital world, Varnassus Prime. 72 billion citizens. No defense grid strong enough to stop what Earth's wrath could now do. But it wasn't time to strike yet. Not yet. He needed to test the waters, to remind the galaxy that humanity didn't return with diplomacy. They returned with fire. "Computer," he said, and the ship's voice responded in an eerie, feminine tone. "Ready, Commander Vex. Identify the nearest Dominion military installation within strike range. Zandari Forward Outpost 913, approximately 0.7 light cycles, lightly defended, mostly research personnel." He paused. "Do they know we're here?" "No, Commander. They are not prepared." Vex clenched his jaw. "Prepare all weapons. I want them to see us coming. Open a channel, public frequency, galactic standard." There was a short pause, then a soft beep. He stood in front of the transmission field, face lit only by the blue glow of the controls. His voice was low, but it carried with the force of a storm. "To the Dominion, and to any who remember, I am Adam Vex, General of Earth's wrath. Humanity is no longer asleep. We remember everything. We remember you." He paused just long enough for silence to do its work. "And now, you will remember us." He cut the signal. No threats, no ultimatums, just truth, served cold. Moments later, the ship leapt into faster-than-light travel, tearing a hole through space like a scar. The target, Forward Outpost 913, sat quietly above a gas giant, its crew of scientists and junior officers unaware of the predator approaching. They barely had time to scream. The dreadnought dropped from warp, weapon bays already open. Ion cannons fired first, disabling the outpost's shields. Then came the rail plasma strikes, cutting clean through titanium supports and atmosphere layers. The facility split apart like paper in a storm. No survivors, no resistance. It took exactly 83 seconds. Vex watched from the bridge, face unreadable. This wasn't about the outpost. It was about the message. Dominion networks lit up with panic, emergency meetings, fleet alerts, political demands, and above it all, one chilling realization. The humans were back, and they didn't come in peace. Inside the ship, as the fires of the outpost still flickered on the view screen, Vex turned to his AI. "Begin activating the others." "The other dreadnoughts, sir?" He nodded slowly. "Wake them all. We won't fight this war alone." The silence that followed the outpost's destruction wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, pregnant with fear. Across the galaxy, the name Adam Vex spread like poison through political chambers, war councils, and pirate dens alike. The Zandari Dominion launched a full-scale mobilization, scrambling fleets to known human ruins and border sectors. The Varnock Alliance, once dismissive, now opened diplomatic channels they hadn't touched in millennia. Even the shadowy Ziari Syndicate, too proud to admit fear, locked down their black market trade routes. No one was safe anymore, because no one knew how many more were coming. Inside Earth's wrath, the work had already begun. The AI, now fully reawakened and operating at full capacity, scanned old human data vaults hidden deep within the galactic fabric, coded coordinates, encrypted under ancient Earth protocols. These were humanity's final contingency. The Last Flame Project. "Status on Dreadnought sleepers?" Vex asked, seated on the bridge as the stars stretched before them. The AI responded, smooth and clinical. 4 potential signals found. 1 active, 3 dormant, located in deep space vaults beyond known Dominion territory. Vex nodded. "Begin remote wake-up sequence. I want those ships online within the cycle. Compliance, activating, Lion of Terra, Red Winter, Voice of Stone, and Kinscourge." He exhaled, a mix of nostalgia and grim satisfaction. Each dreadnought had been a symbol of power, of defiance, of sacrifice. Lion of Terra had led the first counterstrike at the Battle of Rotau. Red Winter had held a collapsing star system long enough to evacuate 3 million colonists. Voice of Stone had gone silent after detonating its own core to collapse a wormhole the enemy used for reinforcements. And Kinscourge. No one even spoke of Kinscourge. If they were all intact, then this was no longer a one-man war. This was a resurrection. As the ship shifted course toward the Lion's Vault, nestled near the collapsed Tau Sarn Nebula, Vex found himself in the memory chambers. They were never meant for strategy or command. They were personal. The ship's AI had stored the images of Earth's final moments in them, as if to remind any awakened human of what was lost. He stood alone, watching a looped projection of Earth in flames. A voice, his daughter's, played quietly in the background. A recording from just before the last battle. She'd been 6 years old. "Daddy, will you come back soon? Mommy says the stars are loud." He swallowed hard, teeth gritted. They were all gone. His family, his people. Wiped out because the other species couldn't stand humanity's strength, its ability to adapt, to resist, to fight when others surrendered. Earth didn't fall because it was weak. It fell because it refused to kneel. They called it the Apex Conflict. But Vex knew better. It was a genocide. The only reason he had survived was because of Project Avernus, deep stasis hibernation chambers designed for the last of humanity's top generals and scientists. Not to return as kings, but as vengeance. Only he had reawakened. For now. Back on the bridge, the AI interrupted his thoughts. "We are approaching the Lion of Terra. Signal is strong. Hull integrity at 86%. Core systems dormant but stable." He nodded. "Begin the awakening process. I want full link-up." The moment Earth's wrath came within range, it released an ancient handshake signal, one only another human dreadnought could understand. The Lion of Terra responded instantly. Its systems flickered back to life, lights cascading across its surface like lightning storms. The ship was older, battle-scarred, but it moved. Suddenly the transmission cracked open. A face appeared. She was older than Vex remembered. White streaks ran through her once black hair, a scar across her brow. Her voice hit him like a ghost wrapped in steel. "Vex?" she asked. "You're alive?" Vex blinked, stunned. "Arden." General Arden Vale, his second-in-command, thought dead. She'd been on the final push into the Nebula line when the enemy had cornered their fleet. She was a war legend in her own right. Her voice was calm, but beneath it, rage. "They erased us, Adam, like we never mattered." He nodded slowly. "They thought the war was over," he said. "It's only just begun." The Lion of Terra moved like a wounded predator. Scarred, slow, but still terrifying. Its awakening echoed across nearby space. As lights flared along its hull and dormant turrets rotated to test ancient hydraulics, the Dominion scrambled scout vessels to intercept. But they were too late. The dreadnought had already linked with Earth's wrath, and more importantly, with General Adam Vex. On board the Lion, Arden Vale stood tall in the command deck, her uniform tattered but still bearing the old Earth sigil over her chest. Her presence was exactly how Vex remembered, commanding, sharp-eyed, the type of leader who'd stare down a collapsing star and refuse to blink. "You were the last person I expected to see again," she said over the interlink channel, her voice steady but tight. "I could say the same," Vex replied. "We put too much faith in the failsafes. I figured I'd wake up to nothing but ash." "Well, you were half right," she muttered, her gaze distant for a moment. "I've been awake for 27 years, Adam, alone, watching the galaxy get fat off our silence." That number hit him harder than any rail blast. 27 years. She'd endured the aftermath without backup, watching from the shadows as the galaxy built a golden empire over humanity's grave. "Why didn't you call for me?" he asked, voice quieter now. "I tried. System glitches, signal corruptions. They tampered with our failsafes. They wanted us lost forever." Her eyes hardened. "But now that we're together, we tear it all down." Vex almost smiled. Almost. Together their two ships moved in formation, heading toward the next target, Red Winter. Its last known location was near the icy remnants of the collapsed star cluster known as the Hailstorm Vale, a place so desolate, not even pirates dared venture there. That's why humanity hid their second blade there. En route, Vex and Arden walked through their respective war rooms, both revisiting battle maps and encryption logs as if flipping through old scars. Each victory, each defeat, they were no longer just history. They were fuel. "Dominion fleets are consolidating," Arden reported. "They've stationed dreadnoughts around their major colonies, fortified the Zara line. They know we're coming." "Let them prepare," Vex said. "They've never fought humans at full strength. Not really." Arden glanced at the screen. "And what happens when the rest of the galaxy joins them? We made enemies, Adam. Whole species fear our name." "Good," he replied coldly. "Let them remember why." They emerged from FTL above the Hailstorm Vale, space filled with frozen wreckage and ice asteroids large enough to crush a moon. It was the graveyard of an entire Dominion fleet wiped out in Earth's final retaliation. Somewhere deep inside the debris field, Red Winter waited. Their scanners swept the field. "There," Arden pointed. "Thermal spike, beneath the ice crust. She's dormant, but alive." The Earth's Wrath released a pulse beacon, followed by an encrypted command known only to the dreadnoughts of Earth's last fleet. Seconds stretched into silence, then a rumble through the void. Ice cracked apart like glass struck by a hammer. And slowly, like a mountain rising from the abyss, Red Winter broke free. Its hull was bulkier, heavier than either Lion or Wrath, designed for brutal, close-range destruction. Its surface still bore the scars from orbital sieges, deep plasma burns, jagged armor gaps fused with alien metal. But it powered on. Lights reignited, turrets rotated, its engines purred like an animal that had waited too long for blood. The moment the ship came online, a signal beamed through. "General Cato reporting," said a gruff, gravel-voiced man. "Well, I'll be damned. I thought I was the last one." Vex grinned. "Welcome back, old friend." Cato's laughter cracked through the channel like thunder. "You woke me up just in time. I was about to run out of whiskey." Arden's voice joined in, calm but commanding. "3 of us now. 3 blades of earth." "Then we make them bleed," Cato said. Vex stared at the formation now unfolding before him. Earth's Wrath, Lion of Terra, and Red Winter, the first wave of resurrection. But this wasn't just revenge. This was reclamation. "Prepare coordinates," Vex ordered. "Our next target is Zarnok 9. Arden raised an eyebrow. "That's a civilian colony." "It used to be Earth's. They renamed it after erasing the humans who lived there." The bridge went quiet. "No survivors?" Arden asked, though she already knew the answer. "None," Vex said. "We're not starting with their armies. We're starting with their pride." Zarnok 9 shimmered like a jewel against the cold backdrop of space. It was beautiful, artificially so. Wide arcologies stretched into its atmosphere like chrome fingers. Lush, terraformed jungles wrapped the surface, maintained by climate stabilizers the Dominion bragged about on every broadcast. But Adam Vex saw none of that. All he saw was a lie. A stage dressed in alien luxury, built on human bones. It had once been known as New Athens. One of the first colonies founded after Earth's expansion wave, it had been home to nearly 20 million humans, scientists, poets, children. Not soldiers, not threats, just people who believed in a future that now lay beneath Dominion pavement. "Status report," Vex ordered from the bridge of Earth's Wrath. Arden answered from the Lion of Terra, her voice tight with focus. "Orbital defense grid active. 2 long-range turrets, 6 intercept batteries. No dreadnoughts in the area, just 2 patrol cruisers and local militia." Cato's gruff voice chimed in from Red Winter. "Easy pickings." But Vex didn't smile. "This isn't about the kill," he said. "It's about the message. We hit them here. We tell the whole Dominion. We remember what they did." His eyes scanned the surface data, locking in on a cluster of buildings where human archives once stood. Now it was a Dominion memorial plaza, complete with statues of Zandari liberators. A historical rewrite, carved in stone. "Prepare bombardment coordinates. Target the plaza. Leave the civilian centers intact." Arden hesitated. "You sure?" Vex nodded. "We're not monsters. We're reminders." Earth's Wrath descended from low orbit, its massive frame blotting out the sun above Zarnok 9's capital. Citizens looked up in awe and confusion, some too young to recognize the shape of a human dreadnought, others old enough to freeze in terror. Then the speakers roared to life, broadcasting in galactic common across every frequency. "This is General Adam Vex of the Human Empire." The name dropped like a hammer. "You stand on the bones of our people. You erased our names. You buried our dead without honor. Today, you will remember." In synchronized precision, the 3 dreadnoughts locked weapons, high-orbit kinetic cannons deployed, and with thunder that split the sky, they fired. The plaza vanished. Not crumbled, not cracked, erased. Statues turned to molten slag. The Dominion Museum turned to rubble. The monument at the center, an obelisk dedicated to the liberation of primitive species, shattered in mid-air, torn apart by the force of vengeance. But not a single civilian home was touched. The message was loud, surgical, and unforgettable. Within minutes, Dominion news feeds exploded, emergency transmissions, diplomatic outcries, proclamations of terrorism. But they didn't call Vex a terrorist. They called him what he was, a general of a dead empire returned from the grave. Arden watched the feed in silence. They're scared. Cato chuckled darkly. They should be. But Vex wasn't satisfied. Not yet. He looked deeper into the planetary archives, which the AI had silently infiltrated during the attack. What he found turned his stomach. Zarnok 9 wasn't just a colony, it was a re-education facility. Built on top of human ruins, it served as a psychological reform center for hybrid offspring. Children born from the few humans who had been enslaved before the extinction. Vex's voice dropped to a whisper. They took our blood and tried to breed us out of history. His fists clenched. Arden read the report too, her face pale. There are survivors, she whispered. Descendants. Can we extract them? He asked. The AI answered immediately. Yes, probability of successful extraction exceeds 91% with coordinated distraction. Vex turned to Cato. You up for a little noise? Cato grinned. You had me at blow it up. Minutes later, Red Winter launched a series of surface strikes on the outer industrial districts, drawing away all remaining defenses. Meanwhile, a stealth pod descended from Earth's wrath, landing outside the re-education center under heavy jamming fields. Inside the center, the children watched the sky burn from behind barred windows. Their caretakers, Dominion agents in polished uniforms, scrambled in confusion, yelling into dead comms. The door exploded inward. Human operatives, awakened by the dreadnought's call, stormed in, weapons drawn but aimed only at the guards. One soldier, a young woman named Lyra, approached a child no older than 7. The girl looked up with wide, terrified eyes. Lyra knelt and smiled, tears in her eyes. You're not alone anymore. The children didn't cry. Not at first. They were too shocked, too conditioned, too used to the silence of control, the cold stares of Dominion handlers, the metallic voices reading out their ancestry reports like war crimes. They had never seen humans before. Not like this. Not real. Not alive. Their caretakers always said humans were extinct, a failed species whose blood was too violent to be trusted. But Lyra knelt there, her weapon slung over her shoulder, offering her hand to the girl with the wide, amber eyes. We're human, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Like you. The little girl touched Lyra's face, confused. But you're not sick, Lyra blinked. What? They said the reason the old ones died was because they were sick. In the head, because of anger. Her words dropped like a knife into Lyra's heart. That was how the Dominion had rewritten history, turning pride into madness, resistance into disease. They hadn't just tried to erase humanity, they'd tried to rewrite it. Lyra turned to her squad. Secure the rest, move fast, minimal noise. Within 10 minutes, the re-education center was cleared. 37 children, most under 12, all of them marked as genetic remnants, a sterile term for what they really were, survivors. Back aboard Earth's Wrath, Vex watched the extraction through the live feed, jaw tight. They called us monsters, he muttered. Arden's face flickered onto his console. This was always more than just killing us. They were afraid of the idea of us. And they should have been, Vex said. We adapt. We remember. We rise. Cato's voice crackled in with the usual gravel and fire. So what now? We send these kids off to some hidden corner? Let them grow up in fear like we did? No, Vex replied. We train them. We teach them who they are, what was taken from them. We give them their names back. He turned toward the med bay, where the children were being processed, scanned, and treated by Earth's long-dormant medical AI. The machines moved like ghosts through muscle memory, as if eager to heal again. The little girl, her name was Tali, sat on a stool, staring at a screen displaying images of old Earth, oceans, forests, birds. She looked up at the nurse drone and asked, "Is this where I came from?" "No," the drone replied in its soft, programmed voice, "but it's where your blood comes from, and where your enemies made a mistake." Meanwhile, Dominion space reeled from the Zarnok attack. Emergency councils convened in panic. Political blame raged across the halls of their central senate. High Chancellor Erix of the Zandari Dominion, a tall, silver-skinned being with golden ocular implants, stood at the head of the chamber. "We are facing an enemy that should not exist," he growled, voice amplified to the vast crowd. "These are not mere terrorists. These are ghosts of a genocidal past. They seek chaos, collapse. We cannot allow them to infect this galaxy again." Some senators called for negotiation. Others demanded full-scale war. But the fear was undeniable. Because it wasn't just the dreadnoughts anymore. Across forgotten ruins, across dead space and uncharted systems, ancient human beacons began to pulse. Outposts lost to time flickered with life. Stealth ships, buried beneath crusted moons, began to awaken. Long-dormant satellites whispered old Earth codes. And scattered across the stars, other survivors, humans who had gone into hiding, hybrids who had been raised in shadows, AI allies who had never shut down, began to respond. The human empire hadn't died. It had gone silent. And now its silence was over. Back in orbit, Vex stood before the bridge's wide viewport, the stars cold and distant ahead. Arden and Kato stood beside him, arms folded, eyes watching the movement of Dominion fleets scrambling across space in fear. "You know what comes next?" Arden said. Vex nodded. "They'll strike hard. Try to bury us before we gather more strength." "They'll fail," Kato grunted. "They don't know what it means to fight for your dead." "No," Vex agreed, "but they're about to learn." He turned back to the console, pulled up a map of Dominion core worlds, and pointed to one in particular. "Target the Zandari Senate homeworld. We don't destroy it. Not yet. We remind them." Arden raised an eyebrow. "Remind them of what?" Vex's gaze didn't waver. "That this galaxy belongs to us, too. The core world of the Dominion, Varela Prime, had never seen war. For over 3,000 years, it had stood untouched, a gleaming citadel of power. Towering cities reached into the sky like spears of crystal and steel. Defense grids pulsed quietly beneath its clouds, wrapped in layers of complacency, their systems tested only during ceremonial drills. The Zandari Senate ruled from its heart, a sprawling fortress palace suspended in mid-air, built atop the ruins of an old battlefield they never acknowledged. Now, for the first time in centuries, alarms screamed through its golden spires. From the shadow of Varela's second moon, Earth's Wrath, Lion of Terra, and Red Winter uncloaked in perfect formation. Dominion scanners registered them too late. Panic spread through command centers, where officers fumbled to understand how the most secure planet in the galaxy had been breached by ghosts from a forgotten war. Adam Vex stood on the bridge, his expression stone. "No weapons," he ordered. "No strikes. This isn't destruction. It's demonstration." "Are you sure?" Kato asked through grit teeth. "I've waited a long time to put this planet in the dirt." "They need to see our face," Vex said, "before we become their reckoning." The dreadnoughts hovered just above the stratosphere, their massive silhouettes casting a shadow across Varela's capital. People poured into the streets, officials screamed into comms, and then, just like before, the sky spoke. "We are humanity. You called us extinct, you called us savage, you erased us. Now we remember, now you will. Every screen across the planet was overwritten. Footage of Earth's last days played in chilling clarity. Cities burning as alien fleets bombarded the atmosphere, human soldiers dragged from their homes, children crying in evacuation ships that never launched. Images long deleted, censored, rewritten. The truth returned like fire. Then the message cut to real time. Vex stood tall in the broadcast, surrounded by the insignia of the old human empire. Arden at his left, Cato at his right. A triangle of vengeance and memory. "Varela Prime sits on the bones of our murdered," Vex said. "You turned our blood into myth. You raised your children on the lie that we were monsters, when it was you who lit the match that burned our worlds." He leaned forward, voice low, lethal. "This is your warning." Then the screen went black. No blast followed. No invasion. Just silence. But it wasn't peace, it was promise. The three dreadnoughts pulled back in unison, slipping from orbit like ghosts again, leaving behind only the crushing weight of fear and the realization that the galaxy's forgotten apex predator had returned. On board Earth's Wrath, the bridge was quiet. "We've lit the flame," Arden said softly. "And the fire's spreading," Cato added. Vex turned to the center holomap. Beacon signals flickered across the outer rim, old allies answering the call, rogue AIs reactivating, exiled humans emerging from beneath alien-dominated cityscapes. Even a few defectors, Ziari rebels, disillusioned Varnok, and hybrids from colonies like Zarnok 9, pledged allegiance to a cause they'd only heard of in forbidden whispers. A human reclamation had begun. In the medbay, Tali, the little girl from the re-education center, sat watching the news feeds with the other children. Lyra crouched beside her, explaining what each symbol meant, what each star system had once been called before it was renamed, stolen. Tali looked up. "Will we ever go home?" Lyra placed a hand on her shoulder. "We're already on our way." Back in the war room, Vex met with Arden and Cato, now joined by three more commanders who had answered the ancient dreadnought summons, others like them who had survived the purge, hidden in stasis, or embedded in deep cover missions for centuries. "We rebuild the fleet," Arden said. "We gather survivors, reclaim technology, and take back the colonies that were ours." "And when the Dominion retaliates?" one of the new commanders asked. Vex stared at the glowing core of the galaxy in the center display. "They will," he said. "And when they do, we won't hide anymore." Cato slammed his fist into the table. "Then we make sure their fear is justified." The room fell quiet, and in that silence, something stirred. Not vengeance. Purpose. For 5,000 years, humanity had been silent, sleeping, buried. Now they were awake, and the galaxy would never sleep again.